Hi, I'm Shiloh Thomas from Arcterra. Welcome to Surveillance Signals, where we look at how global financial institutions are navigating change in communications surveillance. AI, it's a major topic in communication surveillance today, but adoption remains thoughtful and measured. This conversation with Chris focuses on where AI delivers value and where caution still matters. Chris, switching gears just a little bit to a topic that I know is near and dear to your heart is AI and how AI keeps coming up in these conversations. When it comes to AI in surveillance, where do you actually see it being used in practice today?
In a number of different ways, right? So AI is nothing but a tool set, a capability of your surveillance technology to be able to deliver different kinds of results, right? It's one of many tools. And so I recommend that you don't go all in and only in with AI. You need to have a leveraged approach, leveraging the best of new school and old school techniques. When it comes to what AI tools are being predominantly used within our customer base, I would say there's probably four different areas. One, it's around sort of language. So we're looking at things like the ability to transcribe voice communications, translation, the ability to translate those communications into a base language so that your reviewer team can effectively review those without requiring a reviewer that speaks a specific language. I would say it's also around false positive mitigation. How do you eliminate all of the noise and the junk that just kind of bogs things down? And lastly, how do you generate more high quality alerts? And so you need to have AI that could leverage those four areas. To me, those are the top four use cases for AI today. But there's even more. I can keep going on forever on this topic, Shiloh.
There obviously are a number of ways that AI can be deployed, and there are a lot of misunderstandings out there. What would you say is the biggest misunderstanding about what AI can and cannot do in surveillance?
I think it depends on the firm that I'm talking to. And there's probably two kinds of extremes, right? So on one side, I've seen firms deeply mistrust AI and have a fear of the black box. And I think this is justifiable to a certain extent, right? You need to understand how your surveillance solution is drawing out alerts. There's no doubt about it. You can't just leave it to the black box um, because when something goes wrong, how are you going to explain it? By that same token, however, you don't need to understand AI to the point of getting deep into the algorithm and explaining exactly how the algorithm makes a calculation. You need to understand what the inputs are that influence the eventual outcome when it comes to classifying information or identifying a language or even how language translation works. As long as you understand fundamentally what goes in to how the AI makes its decision, the weights and measures to a certain degree, I think you're good. You do, you don't need to be able to rewrite the code or create the model from scratch. So I think that's one of the big misconceptions I've seen in relation to this, especially with the rise of Gen AI, the growth in what I call the AI Council. And this again goes beyond surveillance. We've seen it ourselves internally within our organization, as you know, Shiloh. And so this huge generational shift as a result of OpenAI and the growth in LLMs has led firms to kind of create these councils that are headed by different individuals within different departments, right? So maybe from compliance, from legal, records management, security, come up with a framework on what good AI is. We're still, as a society, working out what good governance around AI happens to be. We've seen a couple of frameworks come out with ISO and a few others, but I don't think we're quite there yet. And as a result of that, every firm's AI council is kind of coming up with that recipe on their own. And what I have seen is that some firms actually retrace their steps. We've had a client who was using machine learning for years and had deployed it for years, actually turn it off until the AI council could then approve it again and turn it back on. So I think this is kind of a temporary hurdle, but it is an interesting problem that organizations are working through. On the other extreme, I've also seen firms think that AI is going to solve all their problems. They're old school. They're digging through hundreds and tens of thousands of alerts every week. They're sick and tired of it, and they want an easy button and just make it all easy. Just make it all go away. Give me AI. Leverage AI only, and are blindly looking for solutions that are AI only approaches to their regulation programs. And I would throw a word of caution there. You need to understand how the AI is implementing. You need a degree of transparency into how the AI makes classifications so that you could properly govern it, right? If you look at societies that we've seen in the movies, like Wall-E, right, where the engine, basically the spaceship takes over what it thinks is most important to those people, to the society, then you lose control of your program, right? And so maintaining that transparency and governing that transparency is important, but you don't want to go overboard. I think it's a measured approach in between the former example and the latter example that is the right solution fit.
So you mentioned control of AI, and I bet that that's in part why some firms are experimenting with internal tools, while we have seen others that have fully embraced AI in embedded platforms, not unlike ours. So, are there any trade-offs that you see, any success in one or the other to weigh between the two different approaches? Internal built versus leveraging what is available in your surveillance technology.
Right. So, yes, I think the difference tends to be on the size of the firm. The larger firms, some of them have decided to kind of go at it on their own and sort of develop their own models to be able to detect alerts and identify noise. Right. Some firms have even built out the capability to transcribe and translate information using public language based models. Totally doable. And as firms in our industry have been adopting AI, some of the larger customers in the world have gone at it on their own. I think the one problem with that is when you think about this long term, how long do you want to be in the business of creating and maintaining language models, right? As technology, as AI continues to be democratized, continues to be led by and in control of business leaders, are you a technology company or are you a financial company, right? And so, in that sense, the medium-sized firms they tend to be pushing hard against their vendors to be able to provide the kind of AI and technology solutions that are required, right? More so than the large ones, which tend to be building theirs out themselves, right? I think there's a good, comfortable medium where the vendors can provide customers with the capability to influence and train the AI in a simplified business approach as opposed to requiring data scientists. And as the vendors continue to figure that out, I think our customers are going to benefit from that type of technology.
I've definitely seen that conversation, especially in the early years. Do you build? Do you buy? Do you take advantage of what's already best in breed out there? So it certainly is a decision, and it could certainly keep you wrapped up with something that you have built and then be able to manage, and that can be very challenging as you are looking to continue your transformation journey. Going back to value, though, where do you see AI delivering the most value, especially when it's applied in a targeted, purpose-built way, like Arctera for surveillance?
The biggest value I would say comes in two spots. One is around language AI, right? The ability to leverage transcription and translation to bring sort of ecoms and vcoms together. That has led to a consolidation of teams. And the other area has been around noise mitigation and alert quality generation. And that has led firms to be able to generate fewer alerts, yet at the same time, increase the number of findings discovered every day, right? And so they're actually lowering their risk by doing not less work, but less triage of garbage, right? So those two elements are by far the two biggest benefits that organizations have been able to take advantage of when they've matured to the point where they're fully adopting AI.
In addition to that, you had mentioned earlier about transparency, explainability. So I imagine those are derivative values. But what guardrails, design principles, maybe it's those, maybe it's others, matter most when firms are deciding that, yes, I'm now comfortable using AI in surveillance?
So there's a couple of things, right? Obviously, transparency or explainability really key. Being able to essentially a firm needs to be able to explain how the AI is excluding and including content into its alerts, right? If it can't explain that sufficiently to a auditor, then it's failure at the gate, right? They're going nowhere. They can't adopt the technology. I think the other area that is really important as well is sort of being able to measure the success of the AI, right? Um, Comparing it to the baseline and being able to demonstrably uh, and precisely measure the impacts that it's had, right? My team is finding this many more alerts. I've been able to cut down from, 40 reviewers to four, super reviewers who are escalating alerts to particular individuals. And those 40 individuals are now focused in other areas to help the firm. So those kinds of outcomes I think are really important.
AI can play a meaningful role in surveillance, but only when it's applied thoughtfully, transparently, and for the right use cases. Thanks for watching Surveillance Signals. You can explore more insights at arctera.com.